Welcome to the MuseCast, where we squeeze every last drop of inspiration out of Sunday's sermon.
Cut to Dan tumbling backwards. He's got a concussion. That would not be good.
I just realized as I was hitting record that there are no wheels on this chair, so I'm not going anywhere.
Buddy.
So,
what was that horse that you've talked about in your sermons?
Oh, I don't know. Have I talked about? Well, there's
sure.
Yeah. Well, there's been several horses that I've ridden. So there's Bucephalus, there's Freedom, there's remember the other one. I'll have to see. I'm thinking about the MLK sermon now.
Oh I'm distracting you. No, I'm just like getting bucked off a horse. Sorry. Anyway, Happy Muse Day, Dan.
Happy Muse Day.
Deep breaths. Listen. Right. There is no way for me to just smoothly and bubbly start the show other than to say I am truly happy to be here. And I do believe, and Dan and I were just saying this, I do believe the MuseCast is a good cure for what ails you. So the smile right now is real in the midst of
the frowns. Yeah, there's some clouds of frown in the Twin Cities right now for sure, and but I'm glad that we are able to get together like this and talk about stuff. Let me say one other thing also. This is just in order of business, so this is not quite related to the content. When I say not quite, I mean not at all related in any way whatsoever.
Perfect.
Yes. Yeah. So I just want to say that, in the wintertime, Barbara and I do come down to Florida for health reasons. And this year we were able to afford to do this because one of our parishioners gave us a really great deal to let us use their Florida place here. And so I just want to say, I'm recording this in the garage because I like to have some privacy and so I can focus because I'm very distractible. And I thought I would grow out of that distractibility, but I never have. So I like to just be secluded, So I'm in the garage, and that's where we have the pool noodle issues and all of that. And I just want to. It can give the impression that this unit that we are staying in is in shambles and in disarray. And I just want to make it explicitly clear that this unit is immaculate. I mean, it is like Cynthia has just I don't know how they keep their place so great, but it is just absolutely immaculate. So don't let the pool noodles misguide you, and which is a good lesson in life.
He's staying in a palace, folks. He's staying in a palace.
Well, we're so grateful for it. It's wonderful.
Listen. Well, yeah, and what a blessing. But this is my one beef with where you are. And I'm not going to say it's the host's fault. I'm going to say it's your fault because, and I said this to you before we went on air. I don't like how close you were to that gator. I don't think that was wise, dude.
Yeah.
You need to be careful.
Yeah, let me tell you something about Florida squirrels, as I like to call them. In the daytime, if the sun is out, they're usually pretty harmless. They're sleeping. Because here's what a lot of people don't know is alligators cannot digest food on their own. They need to lay in the sun, and the sun actually activates their digestive system. That's why during the day, they're just laying around like I lay around, they're just lazy and they're just, whatever.
Digesting the meal.
Right. Yeah. So usually they just want to be left alone when the sun's out. Now, when the sun starts tickling the treetops, that's when you want to be careful. So, yeah.
You're insane. And I don't care if they were in a coma. I'm not getting as close as you were.
I'm not going to go whisper sweet nothings into their ear. I'm not saying that. I'm just,
whisper little haikus to them. Yeah. What about this one?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, anyway, it was a much needed good chuckle when I saw that. You posted that. Because at first I read the caption first and I was like, oh, squirrels. And then I looked and I was like, what?
Yeah.
You got to be kidding me. Any hoozy doozy. All of that to say, Happy Muse Day. Welcome to the MuseCast. He's
Yes.
Dan Kent, and I am
Hello.
Shawna Boren. And we love being a part of this, whatever this is, with you all. So
Yes.
thank you for being here.
Did you
This past
feel, did you feel, I don't want to miss this, but did you feel like maybe you had arrived when Cedrick called the panel like a pre-Musecast? I felt that felt pretty special to me.
it was, but I was like, listen, buddy. Listen, bucko. I have a MuseCast partner, and you will not overtake his role. We love
Yeah,
Cedric. Of course we do.
of course.
I don't know that he could put up with us every week like this, though. In
I'll
our
be honest.
shenanigans.
Yeah, I'll be honest, and hopefully he won't watch this, but I suspect that the Musecast, as much as we love it, I suspect it might be a little beneath him. So
Yeah, I
I think
agree.
he is qualified for higher things.
Yes, he's called to greater. He's
That's right.
called to
Yes.
greater.
Yeah.
You know what though? It was yeah. So on Sunday, we are still in our Love Does series, and I just think it was so fitting that MLK weekend, which we have traditionally acknowledged and celebrated in a variety of ways. I just love that it fit so nicely into the series that we were in. So it wasn't
Right.
like a one-off. That was
Yeah.
really, really cool. And so Cedric was able to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And tie in the kingdom calling that we all have as believers. And then we had I'm going to say a truncated discussion
Yeah.
panel because time was of the essence. But yeah, it was just from the worship, from the mighty revivals to Cedric's, gosh, like really encouraging and like sermon to the discussion. It just felt like a really needed Sunday. And even just hanging out with folks afterwards during coffee and connections, it was just, again, it's just something healing about being around the community. I'll just say it that
Hmm.
way. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't want to, go too far into it, but
Yeah.
sorry you were not there, but I know you were online and you
Yeah.
were, supporting and doing your thing
Absolutely. And people
virtually.
loved it. People loved it
Yeah.
online. So yeah, it was really, really great interactions
Mm.
online. Um, in your point about how it fit in with the Love Does series, I could be totally wrong, but I don't remember that happening before. I usually
Mm-mm.
we take a week off and then we just have
Mm-hmm.
this special MLK service and then we go back to our regularly scheduled series. But this just
Mm-hmm.
snuggled right in there, and it was very like it seemed. Like, I'll just say, let me just. I think we talked about a little bit about this also, but it just felt like something serendipitous about this MLK, unlike previous ones, partly because the message fit in with the Love Does series, but also because of the things that are going on here, not just like this year or but like literally these weeks. Like these last couple weeks have been so intense. In fact, on the Instagram post with the Florida squirrels, I just mentioned that I'm probably coming back early because of the things that are going on in the city, and I want to be there to serve and be a help in whatever way I can. And the fact that all of that is going on as we're talking about Love Does, and as we come to the MLK week, it just feels serendipitous to me, and
Yeah.
I think everyone else on the team kind of felt that way as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So much so. And let me just say, this is our longest intro ever, but I think it's okay.
Right.
Let me just say that, yeah, you're right. Typically after Christmas, we kind of have a couple of actually one-offs. We, just because of just the timing of everything and so usually it's a couple of one-offs, and then MLK is even another type of one-off, and then we get into a series, and we did it differently this year. And I wasn't so sure how I felt about that, but having the way that the MLK service and the series were kind of married together changed my perspective, in that I'm really thankful that we were in this series and that it enveloped into MLK and it just fit in really nicely and it was great. So
Yeah.
for that reason, I'm really happy with the serendipitous timing of it all.
Yeah. Yep, I think that's right. Well, should I do the summary?
Time is always right, Dan, to do a
Well, let me
summary.
ask you this: what was the title of Cedric's message? I haven't heard you give the title yet.
Oh Lord, I was hoping. Okay. Oh. Love's case for extreme measures.
Oh my
Was that it?
goodness! I think that's it. I think that's it. I don't have it because I don't remember it. So, but I think you're right.
And me,
And
that's why I didn't say it.
yeah, that's right. I was
But I
just.
think that's right. Let me
I
look.
think that's right too. That if that's right, that will be the most impressive sermon title recall
So
that we've had.
impressive.
Well, you
Yeah,
look it up. I'm going to do
so
the
impressive.
summary.
Okay, you do that.
All right. Well, I'm not going to summarize the panel because there's just too many rabbit
Oh,
trails
yeah.
and stuff like that. As
Yeah.
great as the panel was, each one of those questions that you guys talked about could have been its own
Oh, yeah.
summary. So, what I want to do is I just want to talk about Cedric's little message that he had, and I say little because it was like wedged in between these two things, but it was big
Yeah.
in import, little in size. It packed a punch, and he starts off by just giving props to his kind of awakening to what MLK was all about, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And he starts off with just one of the greatest quotes of the 20th century, in my opinion, that darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can, and hate cannot drive out hate, only love can. And really, that was sort of the heart of Dr. King's entire theology, was just this importance of love, and that includes the love of our enemies. And that's why this MLK service fits so nicely in our Love Does series because of the centrality of that love in Dr. King's ministry and in his theology. And so when you look at Paul's discussion of love in 1 Corinthians 13, you see that love, acts, it does things. And well, that's what Dr. King was doing. He was doing things and he was protesting and all of that. And he kind of caused some a ruckus and people know the history for the most part, but the disruption that Dr. King was causing was not easy for some of the people in the city to handle. And so you had these white Christian leaders who kind of felt like the movement that Dr. King was kind of spearheading it was going too fast. It was too disruptive. And when Dr. King was arrested and when he was in jail, he encountered this kind of this was like a joint letter between these 8 Christian leaders who were just kind of cautioning Dr. King and the movement about being unwise and about these extreme measures being untimely, and that we need to just let things work themselves out. But unfortunately, things don't work themselves out a lot of times. A lot of times you need to work them out. It needs to be worked out. They don't do it by themselves. And so Dr. King wrote this letter from the Birmingham jail, which is just brilliant. And so what Cedric did with that is he's looking at Dr. King. He's looking at this letter from the Birmingham jail and these extreme measures, which were all nonviolent. And he's looking at kind of the situation that Dr. King was in, where you have these oppressed people who had kind of lost faith in the system. And Cedric just noted, well, that's the same situation we're in now. There are people who have lost faith in the system because of this federal activity that is kind of centering on one group of people and not another. And there is this inherent sort of unfairness about it. And Cedric also just noted that what's different now than in the civil rights movement is that now it just seems like a lot of our leaders are very self-centered, and their leadership is sort of a move toward building their own platform and things like that. And it can be very, very frustrating. And so none of the leaders who should be taking action against these injustices are doing so because they're not in it for that. They're in it for themselves. But then when you look at Jesus, you see Jesus taking these extreme measures to right these wrongs and to challenge these systems. And even, you look at John 3:16, that by itself shows God taking this extreme measure. Because love does something. Love acts. It's not a feeling that you just ponder. It's something that you put into action, and so love should motivate us to do something, and that's what God is calling to. He's calling us to take this approach where if there is something that needs to be done for love, well, that's what love is. Love does. And so this is a good example of that. And he argues that love is always directed toward hope, not just for the oppressed, but for the oppressor as well, because none of us are free until all of us are free. And so then he just kind of focuses his periscope on kind of our time right now. And Cedrick says this is a time when it seems like we are being tested. And this might be, especially in the Twin Cities here, sort of a Kairos moment. This is one of those times where the church is called to rise up and to act. And those times are often like this, where people are scared, where people are hurting, where people might be exploited or mistreated. That's when the church is called to be the hands and the feet of Jesus. And that's a big call. And it's a hard call, and it can be a frustrating call, but that is our call to show love and to do something in the face of these things. And so then Cedrick just sort of confessed his own struggle when he sees injustice, especially when he sees injustice and it seems to be winning, that how frustrating that is. And then he just concludes by saying that we can all take extreme measures. Now, this doesn't mean, jumping off a building or lighting ourselves on fire or anything like that. A lot of times it can just be listening and putting yourself in some uncomfortable situation that you might not want to do, but it might be beneficial. And so you do it even if you don't want to do it. And definitely that includes prayer and all of that, but it can also include more. It could mean putting yourself in a place where you can serve people that you might not normally serve and so forth. But no matter what it is that we choose to do, love does. And that means that the behavior that we do should cost us something. There should be something given for that. And I like you said in the longest intro ever to a sermon, it was very inspiring and very motivating. And then he transitioned to a panel where you and Cedrick and Greg just talked about some other sort of things going on right now and where everyone is at, and I will leave that to people to watch on their own. But that is my summary. And did I miss anything big in that?
I don't think so, Dan. It's hard because there was the sermon that was so packed, and then the panel, which, that was just a continuing of that conversation in some ways. And so, no, I think you hit the highs. And again, I always encourage folks to watch and not just rely on our communication here. But there are certain times when I want to say, really do watch. And I think this is one of those. And listen, I've been reminded how I think if on the outside looking in, people could look at Woodland and look at our teaching and look at the way in which we function and operate in the city, and they can make some assumptions about us. About, let's just say, political leanings or whatever. And I want to say, and this is the God's honest truth, don't do that, because we have people literally all over the spectrum. And that's whether you want to define that as right and left, center, or so there's that. And then there's a blending of that. And then there's that's like none of that, so that we genuinely do have folks coming from a variety of perspectives and life experiences. And so anytime we are sharing stuff like this, especially given the climate of what's happening in our state, it is always coming from a kingdom perspective. It is never to push a side or an agenda.
Right.
I don't care about that because I think they're all messed up, honestly. I think they all have work to do. So,
Amen.
but
Amen
what
to
I do
that.
care about is loving people and showing up for people.
Hmm.
And there are things that are above our pay grade. We say that all the time. That we're not. I don't have the sphere of influence to have anything to do about. But what I can do is what is before me and the people that I come across and my neighbors and my community and yeah. So that's. I don't know why I felt compelled to say all that, but
Yeah.
I just think it's important that this isn't. This is just about living out the kingdom.
Yeah.
And so thankful to Cedrick for what he shared. And gosh, you don't want to wish for things to come together so timely, but they did.
Yeah.
And so I am thankful for the hope and for just honestly the challenge. I think anyone listening to that sermon would have felt challenged.
Hmm.
And I do find it interesting if you look at the series up to this point, the series is Love Does. And that's what we're talking about, the things and the ways in which love plays itself out, how we act as agape lovers. And so you started us off with love trusts. And then the next 2 weeks, which was Greg and I, it was like love does, under the umbrella of what love does not. So like for Greg, does not dishonor others. And for me, does not envy or boast. And then Cedrick took us back on the offensive with love literally does. And there
Hmm.
are cases for extreme measures. And what is extreme to one may feel bland to another. But that's where I think he made the good point of this is where you have to determine, you have to use discernment and wisdom as to what God is calling you to do, because it will look differently for each of us. And depending on where we are
Hmm.
and who we are, so yeah, that's a lot of
Yeah.
rambling to say I'm thankful for the
Yeah.
sermon.
Yeah. Yeah. That's some good ramble. You got some
Thank you,
good ramble
sir.
there. Yes.
Thank you.
Uh, and I think that's right. And I'll put my cards on the table and say,
Yeah.
I tend to be more, I lean more right than
Yeah.
left. And so there are things that I disagree with about some of
Yeah.
but I love being a part of that. I mean, I love being a part of a
Yeah.
community where we can do that, where we can learn
Yeah.
together and where we can, kind of iron sharpens iron. And you don't have to meet a huge list of criteria to worship God together. And I've
Yeah.
learned so much from people like you and Cedrick and Greg, who might not be politically the same as me,
Yeah.
and then likewise, I've kept this church from going absolutely insane with my
You have.
reasoning. So there. So
It is, if you think about it, Dan, I don't know if we could have scripted it any better. When you think back, 6 years ago when we were in the throes of the pandemic and just looking for ways as a church to stay engaged with folks and, just, and this little thing called the MuseCast was kind of born. Like, what? And you and I having the honor of doing this show, you and I are very different. I don't know if
yeah.
people realize it. I mean, there are some. There are some obvious differences, but
Yeah.
you and I are very different. And there have been
Yeah.
so many times, and I have said this to you, there have been so many times when you will offer a perspective or a thought, and I'm like, never in a million years would I have ever thought that. But you grow, right?
Yeah.
And
That's right.
you learn and you challenge one another. So literally very different here.
Yeah.
But I can say I feel a genuine love and respect and a kinship because of what we're both moving toward.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'll say one other thing, and this is a little unrelated to what we just talked about, but I just had this kind of came to my mind, and so I feel like I should say it. And that is, we're talking about love does, especially with kind of what's going on in Minneapolis and St. Paul right now. And I feel like there are some people who really need to be challenged to do something. There are other people who they want so badly to do something, they just don't know what. And and I know of people who are older, and so much of like what's going on is you have to sort of be hip now with it and wow to know where the protests are and to know where all of these things are going down. And so there are some people who just they're not connected to the right people to participate like that. And so I think that it's important to just remember that prayer is the basic thing that we all need to do is we all need to be praying, and that's why we're doing this collective prayer thing, which you can be a part of on the app. But so I guess I say all of that just to encourage people who they want to help but they can't, to remember that for sure. But then just try to do smaller things in the neighborhood around you, and if you're in a place where you live in a place that's doesn't experience any of the after effects of what's going on in the Twin Cities here, well, go visit some other parts of town, go to a coffee shop or go to something that might be someplace else. And I know, like, man, there was I got to know a whole bunch of Muslims in Minneapolis because I worked at the hospital in the 2015-16, and there was this one particular Starbucks where all of these guys would hang out, and it was a little farther away than the Starbucks that I normally went to, but I went there because these guys were they were fun. I mean, they're just laughing, and they were just like very welcoming, and they would just kind of joke with you, and like even if they didn't really know you, they would share a joke with you and they would laugh at something together, and so I just kind of did that, and it was weird because like I go to like my normal Starbucks and everyone's on their phone or they keep like at arm's distance. And I just really like the instant camaraderie of this Starbucks with these Muslim men. And they were all kind of Uber drivers and stuff like that. And just between rides but just an absolute hoot. And so I would say that. And then the final thing I'll say is, for me, I feel like I'm getting to an age where I'm losing touch with what's going on the streets. And so that's why it's really great to be part of a church where you get to know people who are still connected like that. And I'll just say that for me, we have a teacher here at Woodland Hills. His name is Timothy Paulson, and he's going to be teaching a class on Islam and Muslims. And he taught a class on that I think like a year ago. It was a great class, and he's going to be teaching that again. So watch for that. I think it's going to happen in the spring. His name is Timothy Paulson, and he has been working with families in the Twin Cities who have been targeted by ICE and people who are here legally and have still been apprehended and brought to these processing centers. And that's part of the frustration, even as a person on the right who I'm all for immigration law, but I'm not for the dehumanizing mistreatment of people. And Timothy has done a really great job of documenting these cases from people that he spends time with in their living room, and people that he's had coffee with, and people that he knows personally, and he calls and texts. And so this isn't a matter of finding something on the news and sharing it to make a point. No, these are people in our lives and in our community, and seeing how they are being mistreated. They need prayer. They need help. They need whatever we can offer. And so those are just some kind of an explosion of thoughts, really. So I apologize, but I had all that stuff there. Now it's out.
Don't you dare apologize. That's so good, Dan. I'm just thinking, I'm glad you brought up the corporate collective prayer we're all trying to do, because for some that's extreme. Like 3 times a day,
right? Yeah.
and to pray for what we're asking you to pray for, that can be extreme. And we want to thank you for being a part of it. There are times when I get that notification to pray, and I can tell where I'm struggling, because that's the group that comes up last, and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll pray for them too. Yeah, because we are called to pray for those in leadership, and sometimes honestly it is hard. And I would say this, regardless, like Dan said, on the more conservative side, shock and awe, I'm not so conservative. But I can respect I can respect that certain things matter to those on the conservative side of things. I get, yeah, absolutely. And I have zero problem with that. But I also just really do appreciate and love that um that the line in the sand isn't inclusive of
Hmm.
people's humanity.
Right.
and,
Right.
and these aren't just news stories. Like I, I'm hearing too many firsthand accounts of people who are here legally, people who were born here, people who are citizens, um, being snatched
Yep.
and dumped in places that and having to figure out how to get home. Or
Hmm.
Cedrick talked about one story of a woman getting snatched out of her car, and yeah. Or there is another story of, and these trust these aren't just news. These are things that we know. Another lady getting snatched out of her vehicle, and she had a baby in the back seat, and they just left the baby, like it left the baby. Thankfully, there were observers that were able to go and get to the baby, but it doesn't feel like things are being done in the proper way.
Yep.
That's what I'll say, and that could be my opinion, and I'll stand on
Yep.
that. But I there's a poll going around from one of the local news sources here in the cities, and they're asking, do you feel more safe or less safe with this influx of ICE agents? And it's been overwhelmingly that people left, right, center, in the sky feel less safe
Yeah.
because it doesn't seem to be any order to what they're doing, and that's hard. And so that's where we have to remember. And I'm so glad that Cedric addressed this, but also the panel discussion addressed this. You can have thoughts and opinions and beliefs that are important to you, but what should supersede all of that is our call as kingdom people. And our call as kingdom people is to love one another, and to care for one another. And that includes those that are being victimized, and those that are doing the work of victimizing, so it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
And it should cost us something. And sometimes sometimes the cost is even just acknowledging, I want freedom for those that are being oppressed, but I also want freedom for the oppressor. There are days and moments within the day that feels hard for me to say,
Yeah.
but I have to mean that. And so
Yep.
that's where I just rely on the Lord to help me to get there. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, I think, I guess, for me, like, and I've had conversations with, people who are even more conservative than me. And
yeah.
what's interesting is, like, I'll share with them, like, things from people that I know, here in the Twin Cities, and they will send me statistics from some source in Oklahoma or something. It's like, no,
Right.
look, buddy, I'm like, I know these people right here,
Yeah.
and
This
and
right
that's
here.
where I think that even if you agree with what the agenda is, which is, I don't know, immigration security or whatever,
Sure. Sure.
I would just encourage people to be open to the possibility that that agenda is being kind of enforced in a way that is not acceptable, and so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, this is just unacceptable how this is being done, and so yeah, that's I would encourage people to just be open to that
Yeah.
possibility. There have been cases in other countries in our history, in our global history, where there has been kind of dictatorial sort of work like this. And sometimes, man, and what I empathize with is that it's really hard to get anything done in this country because there's so much bureaucracy, there's so much red tape,
Yeah.
everything gets voted on,
Yeah.
and there's always these agendas, and there's lobbyists, and it takes 2.5 years to get a roundabout put in because of all of the
Yeah.
bickering and the back and forth. And I empathize with, okay, but if there's a problem here, somebody needs to just go in and take care of it. And that's what I feel has been done here, is that they found a way where they could just force this through, and we've seen that in other countries before too, where this has happened, and how that has been done is that there is this objective that is done, that is laid out before the community. This is bad. We don't want foreign criminals in our country, and everybody agrees with that. Of course, we don't want that. And with that on our banner, let's get rid of foreign criminals. Well, then they go in and they do whatever they want, and that's where, if you challenge it, the comeback is always, what, don't you want foreign criminals here? Is that what you want? It's like, no, that's not what I want, but look at how they're actually doing it. And so you have so many cases in history where these military or government forces have done things that are absolutely heinous and inhuman, really, but they do it under the banner of this good thing. And in order to stop the inhumanity of that, citizens need to be aware of what is the means that they are using to go about this end. And so I would encourage people to just keep an open mind and to keep an open radar to see how exactly these, even if you agree with the objective of the action, that doesn't mean that people can do whatever they want to obtain that objective. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. I love that, Dan. Gosh, we're going to have to watch ourselves, because I feel like we could talk for a while about all of this. But this is what I will say. I guess my final thing to add to what you were just saying. I love it when you, toward the tail end of what you were sharing, you said, keep an open radar. And I think that is kind of really key. I think recognizing, being honest with yourself about where you are and what you think and believe, and then challenging yourself. What are the pitfalls of where I am and what I think and what I believe? Because there are, if you are honest with yourself, and have an open radar. And for those of you who are tying this back to Cedrick's message about extreme measures, for those of you who are like, I don't know what that might look like. Well, for some, it will be just being honest with where you are and what you believe in and what you see. And then acknowledging the pitfalls of that, the shortcomings of that perspective. I think we can all do that. And I think that would be really helpful. And there's other things too, like just paying attention. And that's where the open radar piece triggered for me, Dan, was paying attention. Like, if you know of a neighbor who is brown, or let's just say a little more melanated, like Cedrick said, and you haven't seen him in a few days, I don't know, maybe check on them. Yeah. Because I can guarantee you there are many who are afraid to leave their homes. And you can think that's nonsense or ridiculous or I don't know, fear-mongering, but that's just the reality. We are seeing it. We are living it. Yeah. I know students who are not going to school. I know students who are citizens, but because of the tone of their skin are carrying around their passports everywhere they go. I am one of those people that is carrying, and I am African American and white. Okay, I got to celebrate half of MLK Day growing up, but people don't always know that. Like they and so you're having to do things. You're having to operate with measures just to be safe. And so check on others, be mindful of others, pray. Yes, absolutely. And then I'm not going to give a whole list because I really do feel like people need to discern for themselves, but, have conversations, be willing to challenge, what you're thinking or what you're hearing. And just consider, like, does this look loving? Is what you are seeing and hearing, does it look loving? Could you imagine Jesus being and doing those things?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And regarding the look loving thing, and I understand that, I don't think, I think it's going to be very frustrating to hold a government to a standard of Christ's call.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of the things that government is going to do is not going to look loving. But in this country, we have a voice and we have been given the right to speak out and say, this is unacceptable. And so, that's the least we can do, and we have that
Yeah.
right to do so, and we should at least do
Yeah,
that.
I'm glad you brought that point up, Dan, because I guess to finish out my thought, which that's on me because I didn't finish it, is, yeah, like these are not standards we expect the government to uphold. That's
Right.
not their call. I can have opinions about that, but what my expectation is when I do see a deficit in what I perceive to not be loving, then that's where, as kingdom people, we step in and we
Yeah.
fill that gap. And you
Yeah.
and I said this, last year after the election, because we knew that people were upset. It just, across the spectrum, people are upset, people are excited. It was, a bit of a chaotic moment, and we just said, well, all this does is that it allows the church to see more clearly what we need to do, how we need to shine. When you see these deficits, that's where we step in. And I really appreciated Cedrick's call for the church to show up differently, because in reality, historically, hasn't always been great.
Right. Yeah.
The church hasn't always been great. And we are the church. So let's
That's right.
show up differently. Yeah.
That's right. Well, that is a lot of stuff, and neither one of us planned to talk about any of those things, and so
Nope.
it's a hard thing to talk about because it's like, man, there's a lot of eggshells, a lot of landmines, and so and that's the way it is with everything right now, and it's just really hard to be. It's just really hard to like be in community and to just try to relate to others because of all the sensitive kind of directions that one might step, and so that's why it's good to be a part of a community that has grace and tolerance, and where we're kind of we're all under Christ and we're all pursuing that to the best of our ability, and we can have grace with one another, and we kind of work it out together. And in this particular episode of the MuseCast, it doesn't feel right to do the nugget dance to go into nugget time. So, and also I don't have wheels on my chair, so I'm going to pass on the dance today.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I will co-sign
all
that
right,
decision,
good.
that executive decision to not nugget dance. But it is nugget time.
It is.
And really nugget time has taken on a whole life of its own. It's an opportunity for us to kind of put a bow on the conversation. And so, like Dan said, we did not have an agenda other than we know we want to do a summary because those are important. And we just want to have honest discussion. And I feel like we have, and hopefully that's been helpful. And another part that we just feel like is important and good is just to kind of cap off the conversation with a closing thought. And so that's what nugget time is. But today we're not nugget dancing. We're just going to continue to share what's on our hearts. So I will say, Dan, if you want to go first or last, it doesn't matter.
I have an MLK quote. So
okay, why don't we end with your quote?
Okay,
is that okay?
Yep.
One of the things that we did not get a chance to talk about in the panel because we ran out of time was the importance of guarding your heart, especially during these times. And I think that is what I want to talk about for my nugget is the importance of guarding your heart. There are going to be those of you who see things and just so badly and desperately want to fix it, to help, to bring about change. And that's beautiful and wonderful. And that can also be exhausting. And I saw a quote this week that was so up my alley, because you all know I love me some Mr. Rogers. And I have talked before about his quote about whenever you see horrible things in the world, his mom would tell him, look for the helpers. And so I saw this quote this week that said, hey, someone let Mr. Rogers know that the helpers are tired. And that just, it struck me. The helpers are tired. And we have to be mindful, and we have to be careful, and we have to guard our hearts. And that can look like protecting yourself from just the constant inundation of news and all the things, not go into hiding and not care, but you just have to take breaths. You have to take pauses. You have to take breaks. You're not meant to take all that in at one time. And you also have to guard your heart. And this is more where I have leaned into this. You have to guard your heart so that it doesn't get hard hearted. So it doesn't get, like a scale. It doesn't get,
Mm,
hard towards others because none of us are free until all of us are free.
that's right.
And the person I disagree with the most, I need to want freedom for them. The person doing the most damage, in my perspective, I need to want freedom for them. And I need my heart to not be hardened toward them. I need to continue to see them as one who is loved by God. And so guard your heart. Don't let it just get ripped to shreds. Out of exhaustion for everything that you're hurting over and seeing, but also don't let it get hard so that you can't care for and pray for those that you vehemently disagree with. It's important
Mm.
to protect that. So
Yeah.
that's my nugget.
Yeah. That is a good nugget. I mean, so much of discipleship is guarding your heart, just protecting it as we grow, and it's like, it's like investing even, where it's like, yeah, when you invest, you want to grow, you want your account to grow. But a big part of investing is to just guard what you have to make sure you don't lose it. And that's the way it is with the spirit and with the heart as well. Like I said, my nugget is a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He says this. He says, "The belief that God will do everything for us is as untenable as the belief that man can do everything for himself. We must learn that to expect God to do everything while we do nothing is not faith, but superstition." And I think that's a good quote for the love does because, yeah, love, God's not going to do everything for us. But at the same time, it's also a good reminder that prayer is important as well because we do need God's assistance, especially with burdens as big as what we are experiencing right now in the Twin Cities. So that is my nugget.
I love it. Hey, Dan, thank you for being a part of our community. And I'm sad that you are considering ending your time down south short. But it makes my heart happy that your heart is here with us and you're
Yeah.
thinking you need to get back to us. So,
Well, I can't. I
thank you.
can't leave for more than a couple days. Everything falls apart.
I
So
know this is what happens when you leave us, Dan.
right.
Get back here.
I got to get up there and whip this town into shape. Get rid of
That's
these
right.
stormtroopers.
That's right. That's right. I love it. Thank you all for being with us. You are a blessing, and we hope that tuning in just fills your cup a little bit and
Mhm.
helps you to want to continue to walk in the light as He is the light. So take care of one another, take care of yourselves, and we will see you next week.